Today we will learn about the Canterbury Tales, which was written by Geoffrey Chaucer, and it was written between 1387 and 1400, and it has 17,000 lines. You don't have to read the actual text because it's written in Middle English, and as you know that it's difficult to read Middle English. Yes, of course you can read the work, but you need to translate the Middle English to modern English. Then only you will be able to understand this work. So the book is very important because it is one of the first books, major works you can say, is written in English language and not in Latin language. As you know that Anglo-Norman period, French language used to be the language of upper class society, whereas the churches and scholars used to speak in Latin language, and English was often seen as the language of common people. For it is not for the serious literature. But then by Chaucer's time, the French language started declining, and many nobles, common man, other writers like John Gower, the Pearl Poet, William Langland were also creating sophisticated literary works in English. So Chaucer was not revolutionary for choosing to write in English, and this was already happening. Chaucer's real importance comes from how he used the English writing in his work. He showed that English could be used for many different types of stories and styles. Chaucer's main audience was educated people at the court, okay, who could read and who can understand French and Latin language. He was not writing it for the common people who only knew English, but he's writing for an educated audience who are mostly upper class, middle class. So his audience was well educated class, because it is only the well educated class who would appreciate his clever use of language and literary references. So other works in English, when we talk about early English literature, we need to understand that there was Old English. Yes, Beowulf was written in Old English. We have Middle English. There were already a lot of other works that are important in Middle English. For example, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, William Langland's Piers the Plowman. Instead, it's special because Chaucer used Middle English to tell many different kinds of stories, from serious religious tales to funny things. He told about a lot of things. He took a lot of topics of everyday life. So he wrote about all the levels of society and showcased that English could be used for both high literary art and common entertainment. But before beginning this video, you can join our ongoing batch on all these competitive exams in English literature. Here are some reviews from the students that will help you make the decision.
I have qualified GRF this time because of Nakul Grover sir only. Without his notes, it was impossible for me to crack such a big exam.
Without you, it was impossible for me to crack the NET exam.
I have qualified my UGC NET in my first attempt.
He also acts like a guardian as well as a mentor. In every difficult path, he's always available whenever we need him.
My immense thanks to Nakul Grover sir and Limitless Literature.
It is very helpful and easy to understand. He supported me a lot.
I would definitely recommend Limitless Literature to all the NET aspirants out there.
Limitless literature with limitless guidance.
If you want to crack UGC NET with JRF in English literature, I highly recommend you to join with Limitless Literature.
And now, without any further ado, let's continue with this discussion. The Canterbury Tales story starts at a place called the Tabard Inn in Southwark, London. At this inn, 30 people meet. They are all going on a journey to Canterbury to visit a church where it has the shrine of Saint Thomas Becket. Thomas Becket was an important religious figure who was killed in the Canterbury Cathedral. Okay, so pilgrimage. What is pilgrimage? Just like we have Vaishno Mata, the same way, and the Christians also has the pilgrimage of Thomas Becket. Thomas Becket was the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he was killed by King Henry II. So King Henry II was so much frustrated because of Thomas Becket's religious ideas. So he had to kill Thomas Becket in Canterbury Cathedral. So that's why this Canterbury Cathedral became an important pilgrimage site for Christian world. And pilgrims believe that कि वहाँ जाके प्रेयर करने से आपको heal होगा, you will get healed, your diseases will get healed. So that's why it is an important work, and that's why all the pilgrims in the Canterbury Tales are traveling to Canterbury to visit the shrine of Saint Thomas Becket. We have the work Murder in Cathedral by T.S. Eliot, which retells the story of Thomas Becket, that how he was murdered in Canterbury cathedral. Okay, it is a part of modernism. We will study in the age of modernism. Alright, so let's come back to Canterbury Tales. We have 30 pilgrims who all are going on a journey to Canterbury to visit a church. They are gathered around in an inn, in a sort of restaurant. Okay, the host of that, you can say the owner of that restaurant is Harry Bailey. He comes up with a plan. He tells the traveler they should tell stories during their journey. Each person will tell 2 stories on the way to Canterbury, 2 stories on the back. So total 4 stories each of the 30 pilgrims will share. 4 into 30 equals to 120. Total 120 stories, 120 tales that all the pilgrims combined will recite after returning to the Canterbury. Okay, so whoever tells the best story will get a free dinner at the Tabard Inn when they return. Everyone else will have to pay for this dinner. And the people in this story came from all different parts of society. This is important because it shows us the society of the medieval period, medieval England. We meet knights, priests, merchants, workers, and many others. The book has 2 main parts. General prologue introduces all the characters, and the second one is the tales themselves. The original plan was to write 120 tales, but Chaucer was never able to finish this. He only was able to finish 24 tales out of 120 tales. But these all tales are important. We are only going to figure out the important ones that you have to study for the competitive exams. The rest of the things you will be getting into the PDF format after this lecture. So let's start with the first tale. The Knight's Tale. Here we have the character, the knight, who will tell his first story to us. Okay, the Knight's Tale is very simple to understand. So this is a love story with 2 young men and 1 beautiful woman. So 2 friends, Palamon and Arcite, are in jail in Athens. Their jail has a window that looks out at a garden. One morning what happens is that they both looked out of the jail and they saw a beautiful young woman named Emily walking in the garden. Both men fall in love with the Emily right away, and this caused trouble in their friendship. And they both want to marry her. And now what happens is that they both are in the jail, and a friend of Arcite requests the Duke of that time to release Arcite on a request. This way Arcite goes out of the jail, but there was a promise that he should never return to Athens forever. He should never return. But then Arcite loves Emily, so he disguised himself and started doing a job near her house, you can say. Alright. Whereas we have Palamon, who was in the jail, who later breaks out of the jail and ran away. Now one day what happens was that these 2 men meet in the woods, and they meet in the forest, and they started fighting over Emily. So when they are fighting, suddenly the ruler of Athens, Theseus, finds them fighting. Instead of punishing them, he comes up with a plan. He says that let's have a big fight with so many warriors. You both must have a team. You both fight with each other, and whoever wins will get the chance to marry Emily. So now before the fight, what happens is that Palamon prays to Venus to help him marry Emily, whereas Arcite prays to Mars to help him win the battle. Now Satan has to solve the problem of both Venus as well as Mars. Arcite prays that he wants to win the battle. So Saturn helps him win the battle. But then Palamon says that he wants to marry Emily. He does not pray that he wants to win the battle, but he says that he wants to marry Emily. So Saturn listened to Arcite and helped him win the battle. Whereas what he did is he creates an accident where Arcite falls off his horse and gets injured. Even though Arcite won the battle, but he is injured now. So Arcite, before dying, he says to Palamon that you should go and marry Emily. So in the end, Palamon and Emily got married and started living happily. So there is a simple message. Love can make friends become enemies. Life isn't always fair. Sometimes bad luck change everything, and in the end things work out, but not always how we plan. This is the tale told by Knight. So this deals with the theme of honor, love, fate, and all those things, and it includes the elements of both tragedy as well as romance. First, let's understand why this tale is important. After the Knight's tale, Knight told a very serious tale. But then we have the drunken Miller. Miller was very drunk and he rudely interrupts. The host wanted the monk to tell the story, but this drunken miller rudely interrupts. No, monk will not tell the story. I will tell you the story. So that's also a competitive examination question point of view. That who interrupted the monk. So it's Miller who interrupted him and he started his own story. So this also shows how the Miller is so disrespectful of social order. Okay, so the Miller's story is about the main characters, John, an old carpenter who is married to a young pretty wife, Allison, Nicholas, a clever student who rents a room in John's house, Absalom, a parish clerk, church worker. Now John and Allison both are husband and wife, but Nicholas wants to sleep with Allison. So these characters, Nicholas and Absalom, creates a plan. Nicholas was very clever and he wants to sleep with his wife, okay, Allison. So he goes to the John, the husband, John. He goes to the John. He tells to John the flood is coming into the town, and he takes the example of Bible that the flood is coming in the town, the same flood that you have read in Noah's story in the Bible. So John gets very fearful. John says that I don't want to die. I want to save myself. I want to save my wife. So now Nicholas tricked him. Nicholas said that we will take you up to the roof and हम आपको एक टब में बिठा देते हैं. We will make you sit in a tub on around the ceiling. Ceiling में आपको लगा देते हैं. If the water comes in the room, then you can cut this. If we tie ourselves from the roof and if the flood comes, we will not die. Our tub will save us. We will float in the tub. And the old carpenter, the John, gets angry and he hangs himself from the roof in a tub. And now, while he is waiting for the flood to come, whole night he is sitting in the tub. Nicholas finds an opportunity and he seduced Allison, and they both made the love whole night, and that's how the old carpenter was fooled. Write down some important points. Nicholas is clever but dishonest. The story makes fun of John for being old and foolish. That also reflects that medieval people enjoyed stories about clever young men tricking old husbands. Now what happens here is that on listening to the Miller's story, Reeve gets offended. The Reeve used to be a carpenter and now he is very angry about the Miller's story that made fun of carpenter. As you know that John was the carpenter in Miller's tale. So to take the revenge, the Reeve tells the story on Miller. So now he tells his own story where there was a miller named Simpkin who was not an honest man. He would steal flour from his customers. The customers who comes to him and purchases atta, flour, he gives them less flour. So everyone was so much frustrated from this miller. Now here we have the two students who came up with the plan. Two students, John and Alan, knows that Miller steals the flour. To stop the Miller, the two students went to Miller's shop on a horse. Okay, and the students brought their grains, atta, kanak, you can say kanak, and says, piso atta, we are looking at you. Let us see how you make flour out of the grains. You don't fool us. But the Miller was tricky. While the students were looking somewhere else, Miller goes behind the students and untie the horse on which they have came. So the horse started running in the farms and these two students got so much afraid. So these two students started running behind the horse, and while the students are running behind the horse, the miller tricked them और वो आटा सारा चुरा लेता है. The miller stole some of the flour, and now when the students came back to the shop, it was very late at night. So Miller thought it's too late at night. So these students, where these students will go? You two students stay in our house for tonight and tomorrow morning you can leave. So these two students found an opportunity to disgrace the miller's wife and the miller's daughter. Now at night everyone had to sleep in the same room. The miller, his wife, their daughter and the two students. There are total 5 people who are there. So the students are very angry about the stolen floor. They decided to take the revenge at night. And at night, what happened was Ellen went into the bed of Miller's daughter, whereas John went into the bed of Miller's wife. It was dark. Miller's wife got very upset. She stood up, she went into the bathroom, and when she came back from the bathroom, she had a stick in her hand. But then it was dark, and by mistake, she went into the husband's bed. And when her husband moved, she thought he was the student who is trying to sleep with her. She got very angry and hit him hard on the head with a stick. She had no idea that she was hitting her husband. And all this led to a big fight in the dark. And during all this confusion, the two students ran away. They took back all the floor that the miller has stolen, and the miller had a very, very bad night. His wife hit him by mistake, and the students got their revenge. So that's the story of the reef. Next, we have the Cook's Tale. Remember that the host of all the pilgrims was Harry Bailey, and we came to know about his name, Harry Bailey, in this tale. Still no, we do not know the name that Harry Bailey is the host. In the Cook's Tale, the name gets revealed. So it can be asked in the competitive exam that in which tale the name of the Harry Bailey, the name of the host reveals. So it is a tale of cook. The cook who hears the Reeves' funny story and says, I have a funny story too. And this story is about a young man named Perkin. Perkin loves to party all the time. Perkin dances a lot and he drinks too much. Perkin's boss is always upset with Perkin that Perkin is not doing any work. He is setting a bad example for other workers. So Perkin's boss fired him from the job. Okay, and then what happens was Perkins meets a friend and they both start drinking and gambling. Chaucer never finished writing this story. We don't know what happened next. This tale is one of the shortest in the Canterbury Tale, but it tells about the people of that period of time, the young people who are so lazy, who didn't want to work, who don't take their work seriously, how they used to drink, how they used to gamble. So that's what reflected in the medieval England. By looking at this Cook's Tale, we come to know about how the young people used to look like in the medieval period. Let's meet the wife of Bath. She is one of the most interesting people in the Canterbury Tales. Her name is Alison and she has been married 5 times. She is a successful businesswoman who makes cloth and wear expensive red cloths. She is deaf from one ear. We will discuss how she got deaf. For now, remember that she is deaf from one ear and she is sort of feminist. She is very confident woman. She likes to share her strong opinions about marriage, about women's right. So she tells everyone that it's fine to marry many times, even though some religious people will disagree. But it's fine. You can marry as many times as you want. It's your choice. So she is also married 5 times. The first 3 husbands were old and rich. 4th husband was unfaithful to her. The 5th husband, Jennikin, was young, poor, and her favorite. He was a former student who would read from a book about wicked wives. The 5th husband, Jennikin, she loved Jennikin, even though he sometimes treated her badly, but she loves her so much. So she strongly believes that wives should control the marriage. Okay, let's discuss her relation with her 5th husband, Jennikin, and then we will talk about the tale of the wife of Bath. So the wife of Bath was deaf from 1 year. Actually, what happened was Jennikin loves reading books, and every night he would tell her a story from the book of Wicked Wives. This book had a lot of stories about wives, how bad the wives are to their husband. So he used to read it aloud, telling her that wives are like this, wives are like this. And one night she got so angry that she tore the 3 pages of Jennikin's book, and this made him mad. He hit her hard, so hard, on her ears that she fell on the floor and she got deaf from 1 ear. And after that, Jennikin felt very sorry because he was in the rage, he was in the anger. So he burned the book the wicked wives, the book he has been reading for so long, every night he burned that book and he felt sorry. He said he's not going to disturb her from the next time. He is very sorry for what he has done right now. And so she became deaf. But then she forgives him, and both of them started living together very happily afterwards. She is also a pilgrim in Canterbury Tales. And now let's discuss her story, which is about the time when King Arthur used to live. So there was a knight in the kingdom of King Arthur. So this knight does something very bad to a woman. This knight attacked the young woman. So King Arthur is very angry with the knight and he said, I will execute you. But the queen interrupts and she tells that I will save you on one condition. If you find out the answer to a question, what women want most in life, if he gets the right answer, he can live. The knight said, wow, that's so easy. He is very confident that he will surely find the answer of this. And in fact, he has been given one whole year to find the answer. So the knight travels everywhere asking women that what the woman wants the most. So he gets different answers from all the women. But then he got very afraid. He is not going to get any answer. And then he walks to an old lady. Old lady says that I will tell you what the women wants most. But I will tell you on one condition. You have to marry me. If I give you the answer to this question, you have to marry me. So the knight got afraid. He is disheartened also. But then he has to save his life. He said, okay, old woman, if you tell me the answer of this particular question, what the women want the most in their life, if the answer is right, I will marry you. The old woman said, all right, then the answer to this question is women wants to make their own decisions by themselves and she wants the control over their husbands. So these two things women wants the most. And the knight goes to the queen and tells the answer to the queen. And this answer saved his life. But now he must keep his promise. The old woman asked the knight to marry her. The knight is very shocked. He is very unhappy because she is old and ugly. But then he had no choice. He had to keep the promise to marry her. And the old woman gives him a chance. She will give him two choices, that she can stay ugly and be a faithful wife, or she can become beautiful but maybe unfaithful. But knight now have understood that woman wants to make their own decisions by themselves. So knight said, you choose whatever you want to become, because that's what a woman loves. So she makes the choices. She becomes both beautiful and faithful. So the lesson learned is that the women should be allowed to make their own decisions. And hence the story teaches us that when man gives the women what they really want is to give the right to make their own choices. Both men and women can live happily. So this was a very modern idea in Chaucer's time when women usually had very little power in marriage. So that's why the wife of Bath's tale is very important. It has very modern ideas that still we can relate. Of course, the wife of Bath's tale is also about the women wants to control their husbands. So two things we can deduce from here. A partner is someone who works for the church and sold forgiveness for sins. Okay, so partner means to pardon, to give pardon. So people would come to partner in the church and tell about their sins, what they have done, and people get the pardon from the partner. So that's a sort of messenger between the people and the God. Okay, so now many partner misuse these positions in the church. So this partner in the Canterbury Tale is one of the most dishonest characters in the story. He has long yellow hair, no beard, and a high squeaky voice. He carries fake holy items that he sells to people like old bones he says are from saints or pieces of cloth he claims are from Jesus' clothes. What makes the partner very interesting is that he openly says that he tricks people. He does not hide anything. He openly says that I trick people. He is very hypocrite. He says that I go to the town and I preach people about that greed is evil, greed is bad, you should not be very greedy. But he himself is very greedy. He admits it. He openly says that I take money from the people. He knows what he is doing is wrong, but he doesn't care. So this tale tells everyone in the Canterbury Tales. And now he tells a story about three young men who are looking for death because they want to kill him. An old man tells them they can find death under a specific tree. Now when these three men, young men, go to the tree to find the death, they do not find the death over there. They instead find the gold coins. And now these three men started fighting who will get the gold coins, and they stab each other and all the three gets died. That's the moral of the lesson, that you should not be very greedy. And he tells the tale to everyone who were there in the Canterbury Tales, all the characters. He says that you should not be greedy, you should not be greedy. He tells everyone, and it makes everyone so angry. Even he says that the most sinful person on this earth is the host, Harry Belly. This makes the host extremely angry. The host responds with a very harsh word. He says he would like to cut off the partner's private parts, and they both get into a fight. So the partner shows us that some church people in medieval times were very corrupt. He is proud of being dishonest and does not try to hide it. So his story teaches us that greed leads to death, but he himself cannot stop being greedy. So this makes one of the most interesting characters in the Canterbury Tales. A prioress is a high-ranking nun who leads other nuns. Okay, you can say that prioress is the leader of all the nuns. And in the Canterbury Tales, the prioress is named Madame Eagletine, who tries very hard to act like a noble lady. In reality, prioress should be very simple. She has to be very simple because of the religion. But now this prioress in the Canterbury Tales is wearing so much expensive things. She speaks French. She is very careful about her manners. When she eats, she dabs her lips, she dabs her mouth, okay, before drinking anything or before eating anything. She wears nice things. She has a famous fancy bracelet on her hand, and that says Amor vincit omnia, which is a Latin phrase that means love conquers all. It's not all that. The prioress loves her little dog. She has a little dog in her hand and she feeds him the best food, roasted meat, fine bread, how a person can be. There are so many poor people in the earth, and she has a soft heart for the animals. That's good. She cries when a mouse gets trapped in the rat trap, but that does not make sense. Nuns are supposed to help the poor people, then feeding expensive food to the dogs. Prioress is such sort of person, and she tells a story about a little boy who is Christian and he loves to sing a religious song about Mary, Jesus' mother. So she tells about the story of the young boy who is singing the song, and now this boy is singing the song and he goes into the Jewish neighborhood. And when the Jewish people saw him singing, Jewish people killed him. But this dead body is still singing the song. And because of this singing of this dead body, the people gathered around. So, and people punished the Jewish people. So now this story tells us something very important about the prioress. Remember, this is the same woman who cries when she sees a mouse in a rat trap. She feeds the dog. She feels very sad for the animals. But then she is telling the story of full of violence. So the prioress story and behavior tells about a lot about medieval times. Many religious people back then, like prioress, were more worried about looking good on the outside. She wears nice clothes, she wears bracelet, and her stories all are about hate that she is spreading among the Christians for Jewish. She is just like the many officials of the church who wear fancy things, who have proper manners, but they are not very kind to people. So she might look perfect from the outside, but her story shows us that she is not perfect. She is not so gentle from inside. The nun's priest is a priest who serves as chaplain to the prioress. So, prioress, we have just discussed that the prioress is the leader of all the nuns, and now this priest is the chaplain to the prioress. Okay, so we don't know much about how he looks, what is the personality he has, but his tale is one of the most famous stories in the Canterbury Tales. So here we go with the nun's priest tale, which is a funny story about a rooster named Chanticleer and his favorite hen Pertilot. Both are hens, both are roosters. One night what happens is that Chanticleer has a bad dream about a fox and tells Pertilot about his scary dream. So Pertilot said, and don't worry about such dreams. It is just a dream. Don't worry about it. Why the fox will come here? But then it happened. Later, after a few days, a fox came into the farm and he started flattering Chanticleer. He said, Chanticleer, you are so good. Your voice is so good. Wow. You sing very good. I want to hear your song. So the fox started tricking Chanticleer by doing the flattery. So Chanticleer felt very proud, and Chanticleer said, okay, I will sing a song for you. And so he opened his mouth and closed his eyes, and he started singing. As he opens the mouth and starts singing Chanticleer, okay, the fox grabbed that Chanticleer in his mouth and ran away. But now Chanticleer is also clever. Chanticleer knows the fox is proud and likes to show off. He suggested to the fox, wow, you are so clever, you are so good. You just caught me. Tell this, show off, boast, tell this to everyone that you have caught a hen. You have caught Chanticleer. Tell about your achievement. And he starts flattering in return to the fox. So fox brags about it, and as soon as the fox opened his mouth to tell everyone that he is so proud that he caught Chanticleer, and as he opens the mouth, the Chanticleer flies away from his mouth and sat on the tree's top. Now the fox is upset because his pride and his desire to show off make him lose his dinner. So this tale shows how even a simple story can teach important lessons about pride, flattery, and being careful who you trust. The moral of the story is that don't trust flattery. Now we have the monk. The monk in the Canterbury Tale is not what we expect from a monk. So regular monk in medieval times were supposed to be very simple. They should pray in their monasteries. They should do all the sort of things that a monk has to do. But this monk is very different. He loves hunting. He owns many expensive horses. He wears fine clothes with fur trim and has a gold pin to fasten his hood. He wears expensive boots. He is fat. His face shines, showing he eats well, he drinks well. So instead of staying in monastery and spend time in studying the religion, this monk is hunting. So the monk now tells many stories about Lucifer falling from heaven, Adam being thrown out of paradise, great rulers who lost everything, famous people who had bad endings. More than his tales are not important, but his character is important. He is supposed to live a simple life, but then he loves hunting and owns many expensive horses. Now let's talk about a friar whose name is Herbert. A friar in medieval times was supposed to be a religious man who lived by begging and helping poor people. But in the Canterbury Tales, he is nothing like this. He is a very corrupt man who uses his position to make money and have an easy life. So the friar in the Canterbury Tales tells a story of a corrupt summoner. So summoner means who summon people to church court who do regular crimes. So not big crimes, who regular crimes like marriage problems and divorce, adultery. So this friar tells the story about summoner who meets a devil on the road. The summoner and devil became friends because they both like to trick people and take their money. At the end of the story, the devil drags the summoner to hell as punishment for being so greedy and dishonest. Friar tells this story because he wants to show that bad people gets punished in the end. Here again, the friar himself has done so many things wrong in his whole life. He takes the money from the poor people. He takes the advantage of women also. He makes a lot of women pregnant and leave them. Such type of person, the friar is telling such stories. That's irony, that's hypocrisy. And listening to this story, a character got offended because this story is about a summoner. And the summoner is already present over there. So summoner got offended by listening to the story of friar, that how can you tell a story about a summoner, we are not all same. So summoner in revenge tells a story about a friar, you can say. So here we go with the summoner's story now. As discussed, here we have a summoner who gets offended by the story of the friar. So the summoner in the Canterbury Tales again is also not a very good man. He's a corrupt one. Also his face is bright red with pimples. He has scaly black eyebrows. He has a hot temper. Children are frightened of his face. He loves garlic, onions and strong wine. As you know that the summoner's job is to bring criminals to the court. But this summoner is very corrupt again, okay? He lets people skip the court. No need to come to the court. Just give me some money. So this summoner attacks the friar and tells a tale on friar, where we have a sick man who is annoyed because a friar is torturing him to give bribe. And in this tale, the sick man is very frustrated and says that I have a gift for you. So when the friar goes near to the sick man farts loudly on his face and everyone starts laughing on friar. So this funny story shows how much church officials like summoners and friars always hate each other and how these church officials are so corrupt. And that's what the friar told the story on summoner. The summoner now told the story on friar. So that's a sort of revenge we have seen in this particular work. Next we have the parson, who is the very few person who is very good in the Canterbury Tales. Unlike other church officials, we have just seen monk, pardoner, priest, and all those people are so much dishonest people. But now this priest is very genuine. He helps poor people. Even though he is poor himself, he visits all the people no matter how far they live. He believes that priests should live good lives to set an example. And when it's parson's turn to tell a story, he delivers a great sermon about the 7 deadly sins. He is the opposite of corrupt church. Okay, he actually practices what he preaches. He cares more about helping people than making money from those people. So he is one of the good characters in this particular tale. We don't have to study the tale of parson, but his character is important. The merchant is a serious looking man who sits high on his horse and wears nice clothes. He loves to talk about money, how to make money, how to do business. He is very good at borrowing money and trading, of course, but he never shares his own problems of the money. He also have a lot of problems of money, but he keeps on boasting about how to do business, how to earn more money, that sort of thing he always speaks. So the merchant tells a story about marriage, and he is also very bitter about marriage because it's like his marriage is not so successful and he hates his marriage. So he tells a story on marriage. And here we go with his story. We have an old knight who is 60 years old. His name is January. Now this old man decides to marry a young woman named May. But May secretly loves a young man named Damien who works for January. Now what happens is that January became blind. He lost his sight. He became very jealous that he cannot look at May's beauty. He is old, he is blind now. and you know that May and Damien loves each other. January somewhere knows all of these things, and he didn't let May to go anywhere. But then May and the Damien created a plan to meet each other. So one day in January's garden, May tells her blind husband that she really wants to eat some pears from a tree. She says that she needs to climb to the tree to get them. But this is just a trick. Damien is already sitting in the top and she wants to make love with the Damien. So what happens is that the god Pluto feels sorry because for January. So Lord Pluto, what does is that he gives the eyesight to the January, and January got the eyesight, and he opens his eye and he looks at the tree and he finds May and Damien making love with each other. But May is very quick and clever. May said, I was on the tree because I was praying from the god to give you the sight. Even though January saw what had really happened, what they were both doing, but January believed the May. Okay, so this is the tale of merchant, and according to the merchant, it's foolish for an old man to marry a young woman. According to him, wives can easily trick their husband, and marriage and real love does not always go together. So the merchant tells this story because he is bitter towards his own marriage and he thinks marriage is just a waste of time. So these are all the important things that you have to remember from Canterbury Tales. Okay, we don't have any major character in this story left now. We have discussed almost all these things, but then again I will attach a PDF under this lecture so that you can go through the factual information that you have to remember for the competitive examination, the sort of MCQs that you may find in the competitive examination. But make sure that you make down the notes on these major points that we have just discussed in this particular video. Alright, so in the next video we will discuss some more important works, and that's it for this. Thank you.